healing the divide. We've been on a journey together that has taken us with our first steps of really looking more deeply at the role of forgiveness in our journey to purposeful living and to soulful living. We took a look at the experiences of not being broken down, but being broken open, so something new and more beautiful and more powerful can express through us. We explored the idea of grace, what that means, and how to be in flow with it. And we've looked at the idea of our unique gifts, our authentic selves, and it's only fitting that we end this journey to soulful and purposeful living with what we can do and how we can be to help heal the divide. It is absolutely true that no matter how strong we are individually, no matter how independent we are, that in the truest sense, we still are social beings in need of connection with one another. We're hardwired for that, actually. Humanity survives to the extent and to the degree that we learn how to work together. We need each other. No one of us can do everything that needs to be done all by ourselves. And so this idea of connecting with one another, supporting one another, healing the divide becomes even more important as we become more technologically savvy and more capable of more harm in the world. That much more important, actually. And so in this idea of healing the divide, I want to ask you a couple of questions. And the first question I want to ask you is, what makes you feel truly connected to another? Stop for just a moment. And think about it. What makes you feel truly connected to another? And now I'm going to ask you to speak aloud if you want. What makes you feel truly connected to another? Intimacy. Community. Being seen. Say again? Air. Okay. I've never heard that one before. Being heard. You got my top too. Eye contact, yeah. That's another way of being seen, right? And not just glancing at somebody. Actually, it can be very intimate and very vulnerable experience to actually make genuine eye contact with another. Say again? Being truly understood. Well, you've hit upon the ideas that I've put down that make me feel truly connected, and they are to be seen, deeply seen, genuine eye contact, to be seen, to be heard, not necessarily agreed with. It's nice when that happens, but to be seen, to be heard, and for me, to also be affirmed or appreciated. To be affirmed. In unity, one of the things that I can really say about our teaching and about our communities all around the country, and even all around the world, even though each unity community might look quite different, might be different in size, might be different in how socially active they are or not, whether they're more grounded in what we call the Fillmorian approach to unity. Unity was founded by Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, and so there are those in our movement who tend to want to stay very, very, very close to the language of the Fillmores and the examples of the Fillmores. And then there are communities like ours that are still very much unity communities, but are very focused on a much more universal expression of our teachings. And yet, no matter where a unity community or center or group may be on that spectrum that I've just described, what is true about unity, our communities, and our teachings is that it is a place of safety. It is a place where people, when they come in, they do feel seen. They do feel heard. And they are affirmed for who they are as they are right now. Not somehow different than who they are right now, but affirmed for who they are right now. That is powerful to healing the divide, powerful to lifting people up. When we feel seen, when we feel heard, when we feel affirmed, we rise to the occasion. We rise to the better version of ourselves. So how we feel connected is important. And then I ask you the second question: how well do you think we're doing? And I guess it depends upon where you look, right? I think we do quite well in our unity communities. I imagine that many of you have created families and friendships and places of work where you do everything you can to embody that in those places. And then when we step back and we look at the bigger world, we might say, we got some work to do. And I think we do have some work to do. And that is why in our unity community, we are not just about helping one another to transform our lives individually through the teachings, but we are very much about what can we do in extension of our own growth and extension of our own healing toward helping to resolve or at least lessen some of the real hurt and pain and problems on our global world. And so we shine the light on how we are and what we bring into our interactions. And so I want to share with you a few reminders of what we ought to hold in consciousness as we look inside ourselves for how can we help to heal the divide? How can we help to create atmospheres where more and more people feel seen and heard and affirmed? And the first is this: that love, belonging, and connection are not only universal desires, they're very real needs we need to satisfy. It's not just a feel-good, nice thing. It does feel good, it is nice, but it is not just that. It is actually a need that needs to be, boy, that didn't sound very good, a need that needs to be satisfied. It's something that we crave, a natural desire for this. New research shows that loneliness may now be the biggest public health crisis. Take that in for a moment. Loneliness might be the biggest public health crisis, next to the issues of obesity and substance abuse. Loneliness. And if you think about it, loneliness could be pretty easy to solve. Could be pretty easy to solve. It was once considered loneliness was once considered more of an issue among the elderly, the outcast, or those on the social fringes, but not so much so anymore. Do you remember what it felt like going through the pandemic? Even for those who are introverts, and I happen to be one despite what you might think because of what I do. There's only so much aloneness that is good for any one of us. We need a connection with each other. The late Dr. John Cacioppo, he was a professor of neuroscience at the University of Chicago, and he was the director of the Center for Cognitive and Social Neuroscience. He was a leading researcher on the effects of loneliness and human health. Are you aware that there's a connection between loneliness and our physical health, our physical well-being? Physical effects of loneliness and social isolation, he found, are as real as any other physical detriment to our body, such as thirst, hunger, or pain. That's pretty significant, I think. He found that loneliness changes our thoughts. He must have been a unity person without even realizing it. Loneliness changes our thoughts, which changes the chemistry of our brains. Quote, the brain goes into a self-preservation state that brings with it a lot of unwanted side effects, including increased levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, that can predict heart death due to its high negativity effects on the body. Take that in for a moment and realize the place of power that each of us has. That place of power resides in the choices we make. We are free to choose. We can choose to be alone, or we can choose to connect. We can choose to be one who creates environments where people feel seen and heard or affirmed, or we can choose to ignore all of that. Our ability to choose is the place of our true, authentic personal power. There's other research that suggests that our social relationships are as important to our health and well-being as diet and exercise. I would much rather connect with other people than have to watch how much chocolate I take in, or if I've done enough exercising. Is anybody else on the same page with me? One is a little easier and more fun, right? Right? All of them have a place. All of them are important. Some of you may have been students of or read his books or studied with the enlightened teacher Adyashanti. And he writes a little bit about this idea of our connection with one another and what it really is. He wrote, "The rhythm we create between each other is the intuitive presence in one soul recognizing the intuitive presence in another." Isn't that beautiful? The rhythm we create between each other is the intuitive presence in one soul recognizing the intuitive presence in another. The lesson we're learning is that every day, in every moment, our energy is seeking a way to connect with every other energy we encounter. Our relationships succeed or fail based on our level of true spiritual connection with one another. True spiritual connection with one another. The second reminder is this: how we connect makes a difference. How we connect makes a difference. How many of you recognize the name Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor? A few of you do. She was is a Harvard brain scientist. In 1996, at the age of 37, she suffered a devastating hemorrhagic stroke impacting the right hemisphere of her brain. And so all she had left, or actually impacting the left hemisphere of her brain, so all that she had left was her right hemisphere, which focuses just on the present moment. That's the only part of her brain that at that point in time remained intact. She was in recovery for over 8 years. She did a TED Talk about her journey and her process of dealing with this. Imagine being a neuroscientist and it's your brain that has just had this hemorrhage, with one half of your brain being severely compromised and only having the right hemisphere, which focuses on the present moment. And so she had no memory or language recognition. She became acutely aware, though, of the energy surrounding her. And this is part of what she wrote about in her best-selling book titled My Stroke of Insight. Think of the name of that for a moment, My Stroke of Insight. And what she found in that experience when she was in the hospital and being cared for is that there are only two kinds of people in the world. Now, I always hesitate when anybody makes a statement like that. I go, okay, only two kinds. Anyway, the way she framed it was there are really only two kinds of people in the world. Those who give energy and those who take energy. And she felt that in the hospital room. She felt, whether it was people visiting her or the medical staff, she felt the difference between those who gave energy and those who took energy. She said that the energy givers entered with positive attitude, feeling. The energy givers entered with hope and compassion, whereas the energy drainers came in all wrapped up in their lives, in their selves, in their own stress, in their own bad moods, wrapped up in just mechanical routines. And that she was able to feel that. She was able to either feel the energy helping to lift her up, which I've got to believe was significant in her journey toward recovery, and those who drained her energy. I'm sure every one of us in this room and every one of us online has had relationships with people that are absolutely energy givers. And when we're in their presence, we feel what? We feel better, maybe more alive, maybe more hopeful, no matter what's going on in our lives. And then we've probably also had the other experience of being with people who are energy drainers, who literally suck the air out of the room, right? Right? Energy givers, energy drainers. And then there are those that know how to receive energy, to receive it. When we are in the presence of an energy giver, someone that is optimistic, is hopeful, is compassionate, is really present there for us, it behooves us to not take that, but to receive it. There's a difference, right? And the difference is when I'm a receiver, I'm able to receive because a person is voluntarily giving. A taker, the other, is not necessarily voluntarily giving. I'm just doing what? I'm taking. I'm taking. Many of us who have been in any sort of personal growth work have heard the expression to be responsible for our emotional wake, right? To be responsible for our emotional wake. And it comes out of a boating illustration that when a boat is traveling in waters, especially in somewhat shallow waters and waters where there are lots of other boats around, think of the Coronado Cays, for example, there are often signs that say that you're responsible for the wake of your boat, meaning as your boat is traveling along the water, if you're going too fast, there's going to be a big wake, and that wake is going to impact the boats that are on the side and perhaps cause damage. And so the idea there is you are responsible for what you're leaving behind you. It's a beautiful illustration as well for us in how we can be more proactive in healing the divide wherever we find it. The divide could be very close to home. It could be in our families. The divide could be in our places of work. The divide could be in our neighborhoods. The divide, we all know, is very real right now in our country, perhaps more so than at any other time, or recent time at least. How can we be more mindful of how we can help to heal the divide? And again, I think we can go back to the way we answered the question when I asked you at the beginning of the talk, what makes you feel connected to another? And you basically talked about ideas of being seen, ideas of being heard, valued, appreciated, right? A third reminder is in our relationships, and this builds on what I was just saying, we need to be responsible for our own energy, for our own wake. What is it that we are bringing into each interaction? Are we bringing in, what is the energy that we're bringing in? No matter what the circumstance may seem to deserve, maybe you've been in work environments or meetings or homeowner associations meetings where you think, I'm going to withhold. This is just a toxic environment here. They don't deserve me shining my light as brightly as I can. Well, whether they do or not, you deserve to shine it. Whatever we give out, we are the first recipients of. And so if I'm giving out hate, guess who's receiving the hate first? I am. If I'm giving out love, who's receiving that first? I am. I am. So being responsible for the energy that we give out, and maybe even more than simply being responsible for it, being proactive and deliberate. I've come to like the word deliberate quite a lot lately. It pops up in my own thinking and conversations to myself. You know, am I thinking deliberately here, or am I on automatic pilot? Am I acting deliberately here, or am I just kind of repeating what I've always done before? Am I being deliberate about the energy that I am trying to hold and be in the conversation that I'm having. When I was sitting here listening to Nicole's beautiful version of There Is Only Love, I was looking around at all of you and trying to feel your presence and your energy. I almost wanted to interrupt her song for a moment to say, don't just look at her, let's look at each other. That takes a lot of vulnerability. That takes a lot of vulnerability, really, to look at each other, to take in one another, to be deliberate in how we engage with each other. Here's a simple practice. We could make a choice before any interaction, before making a telephone call or picking up the phone, before putting our groceries on the conveyor belt and having the person help us and bag it, whatever we're doing, before all those mundane things that we all do, we could make a deliberate choice to pause for just a moment, to check ourselves and to affirm something like, I am going to be a channel of peace and love and light in this interaction. Just that. I am going to be a channel of peace and love and light in this interaction. Say it with me. I am going to be a channel of peace and love and light in this interaction. Would any of you in the room or online like to receive more peace, more love, more light? That's why we say, as we give it out, we receive it first. And then the last couple of ideas here. This one comes from Elie Wiesel, the Holocaust survivor, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, best-selling author. He writes about the idea that the opposite of love is not hate. Do you know what he said the opposite of love is? I think I'm hearing it. Indifference. Think about that for a moment. I certainly grew up, I don't know that my parents ever specifically said this, but I certainly grew up with the understanding that the opposite of love is hate. I think Elie Wiesel is very wise in his suggestion that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And part of the reason he writes about that, and think about this for a moment, when I hate anyone or anything, that hatred connects me to that person with negative energy, right? There's a certain vested emotion that we have. We have a vested emotion when we love. We have a vested emotion when we hate. That vested emotion is a way of connecting us. What Elie Wiesel is saying is that indifference is a complete disconnect from the other. It's the you don't even matter. I don't even see you. I mean, look at you, but I don't see you. I'm indifferent to you. Your pain, your suffering, your joy, your essence doesn't matter to me. It is in part why I think one of the ideas we talked about earlier in this series, this idea of being broken open, is a very rich and important spiritual part of a very important and rich part of our spiritual journey. When we are broken open, when the heart is broken open, part of what comes through, what opens up for us, is a much deeper capacity to connect with and care about another's suffering, to connect with and care about another's well-being. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So remember, the opposite of love is not hate, it is indifference. And then the very last that I would share is that healing can start to happen when we create the space to really listen to, see, and affirm another. That we can be about healing the divide and doing our part deliberately when we raise our demonstration of listening, hearing, seeing, and affirming another. We will be doing, I think, pretty much all that is needed of us as spiritual beings to help heal that divide. Namaste.